Okay, everyone. Well, good morning, and thank you for joining us for our 2023 Community Waste Reduction Grant Application Information Webinar. We've got a number of you on today, so it's great to see everybody. Some familiar names and some new names, so welcome to you all. Before we get started into the actual content of the webinar and the program, I'm going to introduce the two SWACO staff that we have, myself. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. We're experiencing some feedback. I'm Christy Higginbotham. I'm the programs administrator at SWACO. I'm responsible for overseeing our school and grants programs. And with me today is
Andrew Booker. I'm the programs manager at SWACO.
So I'm going to cover the bulk of the content, but I'm going to turn it over to Andrew first to cover just a little bit about using this GoToWebinar platform in case you are not familiar. I think maybe before that though, could somebody please just maybe raise your hand if you are able to hear us okay and you can see the screen?
Or if you're familiar with the, yep, there we go.
Okay, good. Thank you, Christopher. Okay, so let me just advance the screen. Okay, Andrew, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So if you've never used GoToWebinar, we just want to introduce you to a couple features. You should have like a control panel in the right-hand corner. It's kind of a thin kind of little section of the program, and it will collapse sometimes. So it's possible also that you'll just see an orange arrow. If you click the arrow, it should expand the control panel. And then once you're in the control panel, there is a section where you can ask questions, or possibly it'll either say questions or comment or chat. Either one of those is a way that you can communicate with us throughout the presentation. And so we will certainly have opportunities to answer those questions as we go through the presentation, but don't hesitate to use. In fact, you're encouraged to use those features, the questions and or chat. You may have one or both of those available to you, and we'll be monitoring both of those.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrew. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. And as Andrew had mentioned, throughout the presentation, just feel free to raise your hand or ask a question as we go. Andrew's going to be fielding the questions for me, and so we can pause and address those throughout the presentation. The presentation itself, I've got about 30 slides. I don't anticipate it taking the full hour, but of course that'll be dependent on how many questions we have and I guess how good of a job I do covering the content. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So SWACO has a grants program that consists of two different grant offerings. You're here today to learn more about the Community Waste Reduction Grant Program, but we also have an Event Waste Reduction Grant Program, and both were created to promote waste reduction, recycling, and reuse projects within SWACO's jurisdiction, and they fall under the purview of our Innovation and Programs Department, which Andrew and I are both in. And so we are really heavily focused on building collaborative partnerships that impact and improve the waste stream while leveraging the waste stream for economic benefit and contributing to a safe and healthy community. I do want to share just a little bit about the Event Waste Reduction Grant while I have everybody, because we are currently accepting applications for both of these programs. So the main difference is that with the Event Waste Reduction Grant Program, we accept these applications on a rolling basis. And so folks can really submit for this program anytime until the deadline of August 5th. These are targeting events throughout our Central Ohio community and are open to an array of organizations, including private sector. So if it's a private sector company that's hosting an event, that organization would be eligible as long as it's within SWACO's jurisdiction. The Community Waste Reduction Grant, the deadline to submit an application is also August 5th, 2022, but these are going to be applications for projects and activities occurring in the 2023 calendar year. So today we're going to cover details of this program and share information from other recipients and review parts of the application package. I just want to mention that SWACO staff, mainly me, we're here to provide advice and technical expertise to you. We really feel it's important to engage early in the process, really even before a potential applicant drafts an application, so that we can help provide some guidance and advice in terms of the experience that we have with diverting materials in Central Ohio, as well as kind of informing you of best practices along the way. And so we're here to help you develop projects and services that align with the purpose of this program, to provide recommendations to help ensure that your activities incorporate, again, best practices to help execute successful projects that really maximize outcomes. And then I'll just note that all the projects that are funded through this program will be shared publicly and should help Central Ohio advance to become a leader in waste reduction and recycling. So we launched this grant program in 2016. It was really kind of reimagined in 2016 to offer assistance to eligible applicants for significantly reducing waste or increasing the diversion of recoverable materials that would otherwise come to the Franklin County Sanitary Landfill. So SWACO is a solid waste district. We are one of 52 throughout the state of Ohio. The purpose of a solid waste district is essentially to reduce reliance on landfilling. These districts were established under a House bill. We are a public entity. The main difference between SWACO and other districts is that we are the only one that operates a public landfill, while other districts are really just have their planning departments that are helping to implement similar programs to what we have to reduce reliance on the landfill and divert material. And so this program is in place to specifically reduce the amount of material coming into the Franklin County Sanitary Landfill. So that's just really kind of an important overall criteria that you want to keep in mind. If you're generating materials that aren't coming to the landfill, or you're thinking about a project that isn't sending material to this landfill, then this is probably not going to be the grant program for you. So it's really designed to provide funding to assist with establishing or expanding programs and services while emphasizing partnership and collaboration. And it really serves as a catalyst to support unique programs and projects that align with our program of work, and helps to establish and develop programs that can be modeled and sustained throughout our district. So we're really looking to fund projects and activities that can be replicated and sustained. In order for an application to be evaluated by our review committee, there are fundamental criteria that must be met. The program activities must occur in the 2023 calendar year. Eligible applicants include government agencies, communities, We have 41 communities within our jurisdiction, the city of Columbus being the largest. Schools, that could be a school district or an individual school, parks and nonprofit organizations, and private for-profit businesses are not eligible under the Community Waste Reduction Grant Program. I pointed out in the beginning of the presentation that they are eligible under the Event Waste Reduction Grant Program. And finally, the applicant and the project must be located in SWACO's jurisdiction. So the picture on this slide is a map of SWACO's jurisdiction. It includes the cities of Dublin, Westerville, New Albany, Reynoldsburg, and Canal Winchester. Sharon Township is also within our district, but I want to point out Pickerington and parts of Lithopolis, well, not parts of Lithopolis, they are not in our jurisdiction since the majority of these communities are outside of Franklin County. So the majority of the community has to be located within Franklin County. All right, so this is a competitive grant program, again, open to all communities, schools, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations, primarily within Franklin County. Applicants may apply for a minimum of $500 and up to a maximum of $35,000. And we do require a 20% cash match from our applicants. The required grantee contribution is 20% of the total project cost. And later on in the presentation, I will walk you through the actual application documents and provide some more clarity with respect to those, and happy to answer any questions as well. Okay, so moving on. We have 4 project categories identified under this program, including waste reduction and reuse, recycling, food waste, and other organic waste diversion activities, and enhanced public awareness through targeted outreach and education activities. Applicants can choose to implement activities in one or more of these categories. Implementing more can make for a more dynamic project. That being said, outreach and education is always a part of our awarded projects. So again, it's really kind of advantageous for us to talk prior to drafting an application so we can kind of help advise on that. So, you know, a critical component of any diversion program is the outreach and education. And so if you're thinking about something specific to diversion, whether it be recycling or food waste, let's talk. So we can talk about how you're going to reach your audiences, whether that be through signage that aligns with best practices, or other types of messaging that aligns with best practices. We feel strongly that if projects are missing an outreach and education component, it's really a missed opportunity to ensure your users understand how to best participate. And so, you know, with clear and consistent messaging, it's a great opportunity for us to help you cultivate sustainable projects and relationships with your users. Eligible uses of funding under this program include costs associated with diversion equipment, supplies and materials, and professional services. So the pictures on this slide are from some of our grant recipients in 2021, and I'll share a little bit more about some of the projects that we've funded in future slides. But quickly, while we're here, the one on the top left-hand corner is a project that we awarded funding for with the Ohio Wildlife Center, their hospital off of Sawmill Road, and they were awarded dollars for expanded and improved recycling, as well as food waste diversion and composting. And then below that is a cardboard baler, which Habitat for Humanity awarded or received dollars for to increase cardboard recycling from their locations. And then on the right is an example of a COSI bookmark that you can click on the QR code and it will take you to a suite of activities that COSI developed for SWACO, waste reduction and recycling related, that is housed on their COSI Connects platform. And I'll just mention with COSI, they were a former grant recipient in 2018. We helped them to create new recycling and landfill disposal stations throughout the museum to increase the diversion of clean single-stream recyclable materials. So there are a number of ways that we collect data to measure the impact of these funded projects. So we report our impacts to our board each year and share with them more about the projects that have been awarded. And so some of the ways that our recipients do this is through conducting waste audits to help measure more of the quantitative impact of their activities. Others may conduct surveys to help measure some of the qualitative aspects and impacts of their program activities. And then pilot programs, you know, we're not opposed to funding pilot programs. We do want you to be able to articulate in the application how they could be sustained and that you have support and are able to budget for activities in the future should the pilot program prove to be a success. But you know, we've found that funding pilot programs has provided us with a great deal of learning along the way. And so again, we're not opposed to funding pilot programs. If a project is awarded funding, there is specific language in our grant agreement that speaks to signage and literature. So if you are awarded funding for a recycling or food waste composting program, or if you're awarded funding that includes some kind of literature for promoting your activities, we will require that we have the opportunity to see and approve the signage and the literature prior to it being printed and disseminated. We are experts in Central Ohio, and we have a real good handle on best practices as it relates to signage and really how you convey you know, some of the aspects of these diversion programs. And so just a heads up on that. And again, we'll want to see some type of outreach and education component worked into your application if it is a diversion program. Okay, so this is a colorful slide of all of our partners from 2016. We've awarded 57 community waste reduction grant projects, supporting a variety of waste reduction, reuse, recycling, composting, and outreach and education initiatives. And I'll walk you through some more of these in more detail in the coming slides. But before I do, let me just kind of provide a general overview of the types of projects and partners that have received funding. So since this program was reimagined in 2016, we've awarded almost $700,000 in competitive funding to support local waste diversion initiatives across the region. And during that same time period, our diversion rate grew from 45% to today's record high of 51%. So it's working. The chart on the left shows the various activity types that have been funded since 2016. You can see that the majority are recycling and food waste diversion related, but there are also a number of projects that were funded that were explicit to only education and outreach or waste assessments and studies. And then the pie chart includes data through 2021 on the types of organizations that have received funding. So by and large, our communities and our nonprofit recipients have received the bulk of the funding, but we do have school recipients as well as other government agencies. The one thing I'll just note about our school recipients is that we have another program that targets recycling and composting in our schools, and so there is another funding source for schools that we also offer. So this slide really just provides a little bit more context in terms of financial contributions. So I'll just cover really, I guess, 2021. SWACO ended up contributing just under $170,000. Our recipient contribution was just under $70,000. So oftentimes recipients will kick in more than the 25% cash match. It's not required, but a lot of times it does just end up working out that way. Okay, so the next two slides is a list of our 2021 award recipients. There really is kind of a wide array of activities that were funded under 2021's program. I'm just going to maybe point out a few while you have a chance to kind of look at these. So the City of Columbus, this one's a little different and for our region, but it is a pilot program that was funded to implement single stream recycling with identified multifamily buildings within the City of Columbus, so mainly apartment complexes. And we actually extended the term of this agreement, so this is still underway. This is a big project, and it's taken a little bit more time to execute. So we're still working on that with those apartment complexes. We funded some solar compactor units. They're called Big Bellies. If you've been to the Franklin County Fairgrounds, you may have seen some of these here, but this was for the City of Dublin at their new Bridge Park area. What's nice about these Big Bellies is that, again, they're solar compactors, and so it's more efficient in terms of the city having to service them as frequently because the material that's disposed in them will be compacted. Some other interesting programs that have been funded over the last several years that I'll note, and in 2021, we worked with Grandview and Grove City to implement their drop-offs, are free residential food waste drop-off programs. And there are currently 10 communities that are either in the process of implementing a food waste drop-off or already have. We have had the opportunity to provide funding for all of them. And these are great because it provides residents with a free program to take their food waste and food scraps to be composted. Another pretty innovative program that was funded in 2021 was the City of Hilliard's polystyrene densifier unit. So they are still kind of ramping this program up. They were able to host 4 collection events in 2021 where they were mobile collection events where they, in partnership with the City of Bexley and the City of Grandview Heights, where they were able to accept clean, dry polystyrene, so packaging styrofoam, at these mobile collection events. And what this densifier unit does is really just kind of compact the polystyrene and into blocks, and then they are able to sell it to a local buyer in town. So that's pretty exciting, pretty new, something SWACO hasn't been a part of before. So we're excited to see how that plays out over the next few years. Another really cool one is Form 5 prosthetics. So we provided some dollars to help with the purchase of equipment to recycle number 5 plastics to be used in the creation of prosthetics. And so this is a really new and innovative approach that we haven't been a part of either. And so we're really excited to continue a partnership with them and divert more material to be made into prosthetics. Let's see. And then we've worked with Ohio Health over the last couple of years. It started at Riverside Hospital, and in 2021 they expanded it to 3 more hospitals. But it's a public-facing recycling program. They're working on doing some internal consumer behind-the-scenes recycling as well. But in several of their public areas, they now have single-stream recycling containers coupled with landfill containers to help divert material from their visitors. Okay, so this slide really just kind of highlights some of our diversion impacts from 2021. And so again, if you're interested in applying, we can work with you to help determine really the best way for measuring your impact and what that's going to look like. We had a good amount of recycling and composting that occurred from our 2021 projects. And the recycling is mainly the single stream recycling that was collected, so the bottles, the cans, the cardboard, the paper, and then the composting is mainly the food waste composting activities that dollars were provided towards. So these are our 2022 recipients. I thought I would just kind of highlight a few of these for you. We ended up receiving 14 applications. We ended up declining 4, and 1 was canceled per the recipient. So before I get into some of the specifics with the project activities on this one, I'll just provide a little bit of context in terms of kind of how our internal process works after you've submitted an application and kind of what you can expect. So we have a evaluation review committee. It's made up of SWAPO representative staff from our innovation and programs department, our finance department, and our legal department. And so after we receive all of the applications, we will gather all of the applications and I will send them out to each committee member with our scoring sheet to be evaluated. And this usually takes a couple of months. Our standard is that we do not like to go back and ask questions of recipients. We want to get complete application packages submitted. So that's, you know, all of the forms that are required and all of your supporting paperwork. When we have to go back and ask questions, it just really delays things for us. And so, again, that's why it's really important to kind of talk with us and inform us of what your ideas are prior to really drafting an application, so we can help advise you along the way. We don't want you to waste your time, and we really want to be able to be proactive, you know, at the beginning, so that we're getting strong applications that align with the purpose of the program. That being said, we do receive applications every year. And typically the ones that are declined are the applications that we receive where somebody hasn't reached out and engaged us and said, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And oftentimes they're declined because they're asking for items that are ineligible. And if you've downloaded the application information document, you'll see that there is a list of eligible and ineligible items, and I'll cover those in a little bit too. So I think it's important for you to understand and have kind of that insight going into this if you're thinking you might want to submit something. The other thing I'll note, the first one, Bexley City Schools, they're at the top of our list, and we did award them funding for the installation of refillable water bottle filling stations throughout the district. That is an ineligible expense in our 2023 application, and really the big reason being is that the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency is looking at developing a program just for this for schools, so there should be more information to come on that this year. But we awarded funding to the City of Gahanna to implement a food waste drop-off location. City of New Albany is implementing and improving their single stream recycling infrastructure and program at all of their city buildings, as well as the City of Reynoldsburg. City of Reynoldsburg is also improving their recycling and landfill infrastructure, mainly containers, at all of their parks as well. And another really interesting one is our agreement with the Columbus Fashion Alliance. So we're working with them to conduct a study really of textile waste that's produced in Central Ohio, so we can begin to better understand the challenges and the opportunities that really kind of surround this sector of waste, and how we might better be able to divert that material from the landfill in the future. Ohio State University received funding to also put in a food waste drop-off location at Wexner Medical Center. This is for their staff. So their staff can bring food waste materials from home and utilize that drop-off. And then Otterbein University is working with a consultant to also help them develop a zero waste plan for campus-wide diversion. Okay, so this slide just really walks us through the eligible uses of funds. And I had mentioned earlier that that includes equipment, materials and supplies, and professional services. So with respect to the equipment, we want it to be durable, reusable equipment that's used for waste reduction, reuse, recycling, and or composting. Supplies could, a lot of times supplies are, for education, outreach, and awareness activities. It's not limited to that though. That's just really kind of what we've seen and what we've funded. And then in terms of the professional services, this could be contractual expenses relating to consulting or planning. It could also be for the collection of recyclable materials or compostable materials from a hauler if you've not paid for those services before. So if you're looking at kicking off a brand new recycling program or a composting program, those services would be eligible for the grant year. There's a question in the narrative though that asks you to basically explain how you will sustain those costs beyond the grant funding year. So just be aware of that. These are just some of the ineligible uses of funds that are outlined in our application document. So again, just a partial list, but basically any purchases that are made prior to the execution of a grant agreement. So if you are selected as a award recipient, you don't want to make any purchases until we've both signed the grant agreement. Other ineligible uses are in-house personnel costs. So, wages, salaries, benefits, staff or volunteers, anything specific just to solid waste. So, we're not going to pay to have your garbage picked up per se. We do fund solid waste, or what we call landfill collection containers, as long as they are coupled with a recycling container. So, we want to see station, a disposal station, and you know, that's a best practice in the industry. You don't ever want to have, if you have a recycling program or a food waste program, you don't want to ever have those containers standing alone. You want to always have them coupled. We also cannot fund hazardous waste recycling or disposal. And again, any services that you're already paying for are ineligible. Now, if you're looking to expand a program, improve it, maybe add containers, those kinds of things, I would definitely ask that you contact me to further discuss so that I can get a better understanding of what that will look like and best advise you. Some more ineligible uses of funding include single-use or non-durable items. So again, trash, or excuse me, compostable bags, compostable serviceware is included in that as well. These are items that are just going to be purchased once and are still considered disposable. So even though, you know, they could ultimately be composted, we still consider them disposable. And then any other costs unrelated to waste reduction and our diversion activities, really. So, you know, sometimes we receive very well-intentioned applications where an applicant has proposed recycling a material that's not accepted for recycling locally. That's another reason why it's always good to just reach out to me in advance and ask some of these questions. And so, you know, while we love that ambition and creativity, your project has to be feasible and realistic for our local community. And so I just want to quickly discuss the most commonly accepted materials that can be collected for recycling in residential and business recycling programs here locally. Understanding that there is a difference between these two, and I'll talk a little bit about that too. So, you know, all residential curbside and SWACO operates a recycling drop-off program. All of these programs accept the materials that you see under the recycle column on this. This is actually a fridge magnet draft. It's pretty pixelated. I'm just now realizing. But so all of the residential and the SWACO drop-offs accept these items. Recently, and you may have heard that you can now recycle certain kinds of cups as well as plastic tubs in these programs. And that is because this material, again, collected from our residents and the SWACO drop-offs in Central Ohio, is taken to the Rumpke Material Recovery Facility. It's important to understand there are different recovery facilities in Central Ohio where different haulers take materials. And so if you are a nonprofit that is contracting with a hauler, it is important to understand that that hauler may not accept all of these materials that you see pictured here, and it might be more limited. And understanding that kind of basic information is really important to really kind of creating a good program. And so when we talk with organizations that are interested in implementing recycling programs, you know, really our first piece of advice to them is, you know, please connect with your hauler. Please make sure you've read through your agreement with your hauler and ask if you're able to implement a single stream recycling program and what items that includes. But really, none of these programs will accept the items that you see pictured under the not accepted column. So I just, you know, really point this out because it's really important to have that kind of basic foundational information before you try to move forward with implementing either a new program or expanding an existing program. Okay, so the deadline to submit an application, including the required supporting documentation, is Friday, August 5th, 2022. We do not contact applicants to request missing information. So we have a checklist that is really just for your use only. You don't need to submit it. And that checklist, you want to make sure you've got everything that's on that checklist in your package. Please make sure it's complete. And it also must be submitted by the entity responsible for implementing the project. So if you are proposing to work with a consultant or a contractor or a vendor or any unaffiliated individuals, they cannot submit on your behalf. You must submit the application. And I'll just add that applicants should not have any outstanding financial or compliance issues. All right, so the next few slides will just kind of walk you through the application package itself and the forms that are included in it. So we have an application cover page, which includes contact information for the applicant and really just kind of provides a snapshot of the project information for us. Form B is the project summary and the narrative document. So this is really kind of the bulk of information. And then Form C is the budget request. And so I'll just add that, funding is limited and it's offered on a reimbursement basis. Now, you can receive 50% upfront funding, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to the Form C slide. But SWACO will reimburse award recipients for grant-approved expenditures, provided that the award recipient has submitted all required documentation as described and approved in the executed grant agreement. And let's just jump into it. So yeah, again, this Form A is pretty straightforward. It's just all of your contact information, a snapshot of your activities, and then at the bottom, the certification section should be signed by the person that's responsible for submitting the application and certifying that the information provided is true and accurate. Form B, again, the project summary and narrative. This is really where this form in your budget is where our evaluation committee will focus on scoring your application. And so the summary and the narrative includes an executive summary as well, which should be no more than 2 pages. And the narrative this year, it has 22 questions. And so the summary, the executive summary, it should summarize the project in its entirety and provide an overview of the answers to the narrative questions. This is really your opportunity to explain why your project should be selected for funding. And then, just complete that narrative section by providing your responses in the order that the questions appear on the form. The form you cannot fill out electronically. And so you'll need to, save it as a Word document if you'd like, and you can, provide your answers that way, or you can provide them on a separate sheet of paper or separate electronic file. But the narrative should be 5 pages or less. And, we just really want applicants to clearly describe the goals and the objectives of the project and be sure to address how you plan to measure the impact. Again, the transferability, replicability of projects is something that, we really kind of look at as well, and addressing collaborative partnerships, job creation, ensuring the project activities are well defined, as well as describing their sequence for implementation are all things that we're going to be looking at. And all of this is incorporated into these questions. All right, so Form C is the project budget. And so, this is your opportunity to demonstrate sound fiscal management and provide a realistic budget with a justified need for this financial support. So we think it's pretty straightforward, the form. Again, you won't be filling it out electronically. You can save it as a Word and do it that way, or on a separate sheet of paper, but essentially we'll want you, the items itemized that you're seeking grant funding for. And so column A is where you'll describe each item and their associated costs, or not associated costs, the total cost in column B. Column C is your actual grant request, so that's 80% of the total cost. And then column D is going to be your cash contribution towards the project. And we've got like a little example just below that. So again, it should be pretty straightforward for you. Page 2 of this is if you are interested in requesting 50% upfront funding. So this is your time to do that before or when you submit the application. And so again, it should be pretty straightforward, but you do want to make this request when you submit the application itself. And I actually skipped over the budget summary. So at the very top of page 2 is a budget summary, and we're really just asking for you to summarize this budget, and you know, it can be a quick paragraph, really just describing the items that you're requesting funding for and your 20% cash contribution. This is our checklist. You do not need to submit this. You can just use this as a tool to ensure that you've got everything in your package that you want to submit. And then if your project is awarded funding, you know, we will want to work closely with you to communicate your project activities. And so our communications manager and other members of our innovation and programs team will be available to attend board meetings and speak, provide quotes for news releases and newsletters, participate in media interviews. We do a lot of social media and trying to promote our grant recipients as well. You know, we're here to also review any communication materials that you may want to push out as well. So these are just some important dates and a timeline to keep in mind. So in addition to, you know, kind of having the opportunity to reach out and have a conversation with me prior to drafting your application or conversations, we also will review draft applications. Those are due by July 8th. And that's also in the application information document. Again, all applications are due by August 5th by 5 p.m. August to November is when our evaluation committee is going to convene and review these applications, score them, meet, discuss any questions we might have. It is not uncommon for us to come back and ask questions. Ideally, we don't want to take up a lot of time doing that, but we also recognize the importance of these programs and really want to try to work with applicants to help get awarded funding. And then in December of 2022, we will let everybody know if they've been selected for funding or not. Sometimes we also choose to award partial funding. December and January, if you're selected as an award recipient, we will have an informational meeting for all of our recipients to just kind of walk you through how we administer the program once we've actually awarded you funding and details of the grant agreement. And then beginning as early as January 2023, once the agreements have been executed, so SWACO has signed it and your organization has signed it, then you can kick off your programs and projects. Okay, so we ended a little bit early. We've got, you know, about 8 minutes to spare. I really appreciate everybody participating and your attention. Thank you for listening to me. Happy to address any questions. I think Andrew's been over here typing quite a bit and maybe fielding some of those. So my contact information is on this slide right here. If you email grants@swaco.org, that goes to me and a couple of other folks in our department, and that just kind of helps us field all the questions that we get. You are also welcome to just email me directly. You can do it either way. And then my direct line is also on this slide. And yes, so the next question is, somebody had stepped away and they're asking about draft applications. They are not required to be submitted. If you have it pulled together by July 8th, and it doesn't even have to be a complete package. Like if it's just like your narrative or your budget, and you just want me to look at some of these forms and provide feedback on them, that's really all that that is. That being said, you know, reaching out and letting us know that you're interested and what your ideas are really is kind of like the most important thing and next step really after this webinar today. So yeah, I mean, you know, if you've got some ideas, I'd love to hear from you. Have you answered most of them throughout the course of the presentation? Great. So yeah, it looks like for those of you that had questions, Andrew has been answering them along the way. I would encourage you, if you have not already downloaded the application, to visit our Community Waste Reduction Grant webpage and download that application sooner rather than later if you think that you're interested. And really just at the very least read through that first 7 pages of application information so you can kind of get a handle on really the purpose of this program, what's eligible, what's not, and all that good stuff. Okay, so one other question is, with the 50% pre-distribution of funds, is that 50% of the 80 or 50% of the total budget? That's 50% of your award. Does that answer? Yes. So whatever the dollar amount is that you are awarded, that's 50% of that. Christopher. Yep. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm just going to take a drink and wet my whistle and see if any other questions come in. Well, it's always a fun time of year for me when we kick off this program, because so many of these projects and activities are just so wonderful to be able to administer and work with folks on. We've been able to develop some wonderful partnerships, and I really hope that I'll hear from some of you about some of your ideas. Happy to answer any questions, have a meeting, talk more, but just wish everybody a wonderful day and take care. Thanks so much.